All right, hello everyone. This is for once an evening live stream design review. Can tell there's a certain degree of urgency here. So let's get going. We're looking at video, audio, image, etc. So where did we get to last time?
Tracking business. So where it says video analysis, we had one function suggested video track object, and now we're proposing three objects and functions to look at.
Right, you've got to say video tracking object. You can't say, you
So
can't just
the
call it tracking object. You just can't call it that.
so there's a reason we call it that, because we can track just the bounding boxes, just the points, just other things.
Well, let me take a look.
Sure.
It's just an absurd name for this thing. So did we make up this name, tracklets?
No.
Okay. So tell me what a tracklet is.
Is a series of bounding boxes or other indicator of objects that are tracked over time.
Okay. So I don't understand this. Why isn't it tracking object just a return value from?
Yeah, it is. It's just for the sake of exemplifying things here when stuff is in separate branches. Yes, it will just be a return type from the tracking functions.
Okay, so
So
let me
this
understand.
is a container that comes out of the other two functions we're proposing, video tracked contents and tracked contents. And names are up for debate, of course.
I'm sorry, video track contents, and what was the other one?
Tracked contents.
What's that?
So tracked contents could be just a list of bounding boxes over time. And then if that's passed to tracked contents, a tracking object come back. And so because bounding box computation is a lot of the times expensive, it's useful to have a function that operates on the objects, on the detected bounding boxes, points, segmentation matrices, and so forth. But if
Okay,
you
how do
go
I
in
get
with
this
a
stuff? How do
video,
I get, wait a minute, how do I get the tracking information from a video? What function gives me that? Is it this one?
Video track
yes.
contents, yeah.
Okay, but that's not a good name because that sounds like a passive container type thing. It's not.
So we talked about video contents last time, but then we discussed it with Roger and Carlo. Video contents may just be this video contains a boy on a bike. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean tracked contents. So we wanted a specific name for that.
Okay. All right. So let's see an example here. Okay. Okay. All right. So what are we doing here? We've got a thing that, okay, so what can tracked objects be other than the output of a, um, um, uh, what are we saying? Other than the output of,
Of a video source.
yes.
So far, the only use case we have for tracking objects is for content that come out of video. However, as I said, because computation of different types of objects in a video can be time consuming, tracked contents or tracking object, both can just store bounding boxes, positions, label matrices. These are the three main types of objects that we can track and tracking objects can store. So we kind of wanted at least one
I don't
function that
understand.
can
This is
operate
all
on.
about videos. I mean, everything here comes from videos. True or not true?
True. It
Yes.
could also be, for example, a list of medical images and you're counting cells. If you want to consider a list of images as a video, that I guess is valid too.
Well, no. You tell me. What is this? Is this something where you're taking multiple pictures and you're comparing the pictures without it being
It could
a video?
be, yes. It could be, yeah. There's no need for the input being a video, right? You could have information
It could be a
about,
list of images.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, or just a list of bounding boxes or points that you computed for any other data type.
Well,
The
no, I
most
don't
natural
understand.
one
As far
is-
as namespace go, Stephen, so there is another set of problems, and I suspect there are many more beyond that. Like in control, the tracking problem is a standard problem. So you want to track for a robot arm to track a trajectory or car to track a path.
Yes.
So that's called a tracking problem. Now our design functions, maybe by mistake. I mean, no, I mean, it's carefully developed, but maybe we should split them. Do solve two problems. One is called a regulation problem and one's called a tracking problem. So if you open them up, they always have regulation and tracking.
What's an example of that? So, I mean, if I say
LQG design.
star,
LQG. Yeah. So there are,
well, there's a lot of
the
tracking
only
problems.
asymptotic output tracker here is controller oriented. So the other ones we haven't added to the symbol namespace yet.
What's image feature track?
Tracks points across a bunch of
Okay,
images.
so that sounds like it's doing something very much like what you're talking about, right?
Yes.
So what's the difference between this and what you're now talking about?
What I was talking about?
No, what Carlo was talking about.
So this one is doing points of interest tracking. It actually finds similar, you're passing it 2 points in that first example, and it's trying to find the similar points in the
I
sequence of
understand.
images.
Is this just doing a more primitive version of what this video tracked contents is doing?
It's kind of different because in video track contents, we cannot say track an object at this point or track a point starting from this point. That could be integrated into that as well, could be implemented. It's not there 14.2.
Okay, I understand. So that's a starting point. But what you're asking for in video tracked contents is you can ask to track the dog, for example,
Yes.
right? So asking to track a coordinate position seems perfectly in line with what you're asking for there. So I kind of think that image feature track is probably dead meat.
Could be
Yes.
integrated into tracked contents, yes.
The
Okay.
algorithms that are used to figure out the points in image feature track are kind of outdated at this point. Yes.
Okay, so let's
Now,
retire
feature
it,
track
rather than trying
is
to have people be confused. Now, what's image corresponding points?
that one
It's for
computes image
morphing
key
images.
points.
I know. And
Yeah.
that looks at the corresponding ones. Is that still current?
It's still used a lot in registration.
Okay. So, I mean, okay. So this is relevant, but the tracking one is not so relevant.
Yeah, I think we have kind of moved from feature tracking, point tracking to object tracking. But also feature tracking, I was going to say, is a sparse tracker. Then we have image displacements, which is a dense tracker.
Okay.
I don't disagree that both of these could be integrated into the same tracking functionality.
So what is this measuring? This is measuring vectors.
Yep, returns a vector field that says each pixel in image 1, how much it is moved to get
What
to the
happens if I give
corresponding.
3 images here?
It gives you 2 flows.
I see. So it's always the intermediate thing.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So now let me understand image tracked contents, what it's doing that's different from these things.
So
It's
this
allowing you
one,
to say what object you want to be tracking, as opposed to just, and I assume the C also's here. Oh, come on, guys.
this is, yeah, it's not
Come
final, of
on,
course.
guys.
We'll do the right thing. We were just trying to get the designs sorted out.
Okay.
All the proper
Okay.
knitting
Okay.
we'll do.
All right. All right. Okay. So image displacements presumably should be able to take a video, correct?
Yep.
And it should be able to take a video and return you a video of the displacement fields. Right?
It's gonna be a 2-channel video. I don't know
What do you mean it's
which
2-channel?
video.
What's this?
That's a 2-channel image. It's an XY displacements. At each pixel you have a DX DY. And
Okay,
I
but
don't think we have video containers that can store 2 channels. We have grayscale, which is even rare, but most of them are RGB.
well, I understand. This is an RGB picture seen by my eye.
Because we have a mapping from 2 vectors of length 2 to RGB values.
Well, so we do that for the video as well.
The video container, here we have an image object where we store 2 channels in the image. In the video object, we always store videos in
RGB.
files.
I'm just totally confused. This is a picture. You can clearly make a video of these pictures, correct?
Yeah, but then we will lose, if we have to do the mapping from 2 vectors to RGB values, we will lose the DXDYs, which might be useful for the computation.
So if I take one of these images here, oh God, okay, if I take that image there, and I say image channels.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm wondering if it was rasterized in the process of.
Well, let's just do it.
If you reevaluate, I would expect 2 channels back.
I think you're being confused here, though, because I think that okay, so those are pairs there. Okay, what's wrong with that? It's RNG.
It's the DXs and DYs. And
Yeah,
we
but so
map
how does-
those pairs. We have a mapping for vectors of length 2 to RGB values so that we can display them.
Okay,
I
and
think-
that
I
mapping
think
is not
Shadi-
easy to invert.
Sorry,
That
Stephen?
mapping is not easy to invert. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I understand. I mean, I'm not sure whether I'm convinced about the video container thing, but we can, I mean, I don't know what video containers exist, and I understand that the 2-color, I mean, you could clearly encode this in the red and green or red and blue channels, right?
Yeah, as long as then we store some metadata that says this is just use the 2 channels of that image. This is some kind of a displacement storage. And then
Yeah.
we get all the storage artifacts or the codec artifacts of video as well there.
Sure, of course we do. Right. But if you put a video in, that has all the artifacts as well. So you don't really lose anything.
Fair point.
Right? So how do I turn this back into an RGB image?
Color combine,
Oh yeah, that's right.
but this one, color combine,
We'll do this. I don't know quite what it's doing here. Has some algorithm for spreading it out across RGB.
yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that's image displacements. And now video tracked contents. Let's look again at that. Am I going to need a GPU to do this?
No. Carlo, I think just put that so that these run faster.
But you're not going to have that in the actual, I mean, that would be super confusing to have that in documentation, right?
Yeah,
So you're not going to do
Yeah.
that in documentation.
of course.
Why is that not coming out black?
Well, we still haven't finalized the name. At the moment, it's
No, that today's prototype already has video track contents. Maybe you have the last one from before the weekend.
Okay, so tell
Yep.
me what the name should be then.
video contents, most likely. I think was the previous iteration.
That's not
I
quite
think
right.
it was still the video object track.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come back as the tracked objects. It comes back as a really long list of results.
I
So
wonder
this
if
is,
we can be more specific than downloading content from the repository. I wonder if we can say something about what we're doing. Okay, processing video frames. Oh boy.
oh, I wonder if you have, shouldn't take that long. I wonder if you have proper FFmpeg installation.
No, it doesn't matter. This is just the neural net on reasonably big images.
Running on a CPU in this case.
Mm-hmm.
But why is this not running in version 14.2 using the Apple GPU acceleration?
It does
should
with
be.
that target device GPU.
Yeah.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, this uses the ONNX evaluator.
Let's scale it there. Does it do anything? Yeah, okay. All right. So this is the form of the data structure. This is a time series, basically,
Mm-hmm.
saying where each object is.
Correct.
Okay. So your proposal here is giving just bounding boxes here, whereas it could be giving sub videos or what?
So yes. Tracked objects, we have added a whole bunch of properties for tracked objects that are also accessible here, as you see in that
No, but
third
wait
argument.
a second. What's happening here? Why is this not giving this sub video is or is not present in the tracked object?
No, because it's
Tracking
expensive to compute.
No,
But
that's
you
not a
can,
good answer.
I mean, you can access if you do. It's one of the properties of it of the tracking object. You can just do tracking object of sub video, and it will be computed on the fly.
Yeah, but that's not okay. So hold on. So what is an analogous thing to this tracking thing? We've got an object and a time series for where it is, which makes me think of astronomy and all kinds of other places where we have things moving around.
Yes.
So what other places do we have things moving around?
I'm trying to think if there are any analogous places that I know of.
Well, I mean, planes are an example, right? If I say you
Yeah,
know,
sure.
flight data of, you know, I don't know, DOS. Actually, what the heck is going on here? This keeps on happening to me. There's something very wrong. I saw Eli was with us. Is he with us or is he not with us?
Yep,
Who's
Eli's
doing?
here.
I'm here. Yes.
Okay. So please try and track this down. I've seen this several times in the last few days. Of pink boxing. You know, probably if I do this again, well, that wasn't what I wanted, but I was wanting an airport. And what's happening? This is super slow. Something is very wrong. Could you contact something is very wrong with the Wolfram Alpha API access that we're seeing here. Am I making
Yeah,
sense?
I'll make that. Yep.
So I'm not seeing slowness in Wolfram Alpha itself on the web. That's a good sign. Yeah, it's nice and zippy actually. But something is wrong here with access. I bet it's some authentication stupidity. Okay, so could you try and track that down and see if Syscom knows of any issue?
Sure thing. Yeah. I can ask now. Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's a more obscure airport, but one where it will actually go there. Milwaukee, let's say. Why is this so slow? Something is just really wrong here. Why is this so slow? Okay. Now, the flight tracks here. How do we record these? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do not know, I think, anything about this specific type of entity. I don't think I've ever used this specific one. I was wondering if
Recorded
thing about
coordinates. Recorded coordinates. Whoops. What is it doing? Why is it so slow? Okay, so if I say geolist plot of this,
that seems unlike. Oh no, it does. Never mind.
okay. So that's a series of points representing. So that's very analogous to what you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with the difference that the container that we have obviously contains a collection.
I understand a collection of objects, but within each one, the time series here
Yeah, should
is
be
something very similar to this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you scroll down, you see the result of the tracking objects.
I understand, but why are you not using time series?
Remember
So-
last time we wanted to transpose and get positions for one object, like a time series corresponding to one of the objects. If you return a time series with that head, that
I understand, but maybe
computation
you
would
don't
be
want it
that
that way
workflow.
around. But you want the time series for each object. You want both things. You want both the given a
I
frame,
think
what's in
both
that
would be
frame.
useful. Yes.
Absolutely, and that is the utility of having this new head, because it allows you to get the two transposed different results
Yeah.
from the same
Yeah,
underlying
except
data.
that you're asking for those things. I understand that. It's amusing. I'm not sure it's okay.
It is really annoying to go between one and the other. Like, we tried to simplify the code as possible to do this kind of weird transpose, and it is really obnoxious.
Yeah, okay, fine. But so the same issue will come up here, right? If I looked at the tracks of a bunch of different satellites, I might want to know what is the configuration of satellites at a particular moment, or I might want to know the track of an individual satellite. Okay, so it's the same issue.
It is.
So it's almost like, it's almost like multiple time series or something, right? Where we've got, I'm a little bit confused why this can't be. Okay, so in a time series, we normally just have something which says time, t1, arrow, value 1, right? T2, arrow, value 2. Okay. So now what happens in a data bin? Right? You know how data bins...
I'm refreshing my memory now.
Well, I have all kinds of random data bins, but... what's one that has a modest number of... let's see. I'm just looking for something which doesn't have a ridiculous number of entries in it.
Yeah, I see what you mean, though, that you could get time series out of this. I'm trying to see if there is an easy way to get a transpose of that, as we were discussing.
This is a great use of data bins, Stephen.
Which?
What you're showing us.
Okay, let's go here, and let's see, how do I get the first entry from this data bin? I just say that. Selection first n entries. So I think I can just say, oops, if I say data set, why is this beeping at me? Don't tell me. Oh, come on. Well, I can just say.
I think part 1.
Set. Yeah, I'm not sure it is part 1. Okay, so this is an association. Okay, you get what I'm saying? That entry is an association, right? And it has, so now if I say / time series here, okay, that's what it's going to do. To take that data bin, it's going to show me I'm a little bit confused by this question, answer.
It's just ordered differently from the data set above. It has the 5 keys.
No, and then it has some other garbage here. It has some garbage there. Okay, so somehow so this case, it did the thing that you wanted it to do. So here I found entry n, right? And I think I could find the entry. And here I found everything in the association, arranged for, by time series. Okay. Okay. So I wonder if that's the current log. I'm now very curious there.
So one thing that immediately jumps to my eye is that times are actual date objects, which makes less sense for videos.
I understand. So we need to deal with that. But that we know that that's an issue for time series. The more general use of time series should not depend on, and don't we have that already? That
time series is fine. I'm just saying data bin. Data bin seems to be tied to
Oh yeah, it
dates
is. It
and
is because
actual
it
times.
arrived at an actual time.
Yeah. No, time series does not have that issue. It can be quote unquote relative times.
Right. Okay. All right. So what we're seeing here is that this has a time series. This has an association of time series, but it also has a way to return just the instantaneous state, which is an association. See what I'm saying? So it's doing that transposition. Am I making
Yes.
sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
So we're going to need to do something like this, I think.
Which is, I think, what we're trying to do in that tracking object
I know,
container.
but it's not really general enough, and I don't see the reason
Okay.
to. Okay, so here. I mean, I'm not sure this is perfect, but this is. I mean, all of this is quite interesting because, for example, one can imagine wanting to get out of the tracking thing. Where did you see a dog in every frame? Where were the dogs? See what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah, that was one of the things that Shadi proposed that isn't currently there, but
Right, but if you look
no,
at what data bins are doing, they're doing basically the same stuff, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't
Right,
see where that
they've got a
selection
timestamp.
is.
Look, they've got a timestamp. They've got a thing in an association, okay, which is basically a record in the case of the data bin. Here, it's an object designator.
Yeah, no, I agree that this structure seems pretty similar.
Right. Okay. So let's understand what we're doing with this because and this, by the way, Roger, data bins to tabular, has that been looked at? Roger? Roger, are you with us?
Sorry, it was muted. Yes,
Muted.
no, it isn't, but we probably need to look at that.
Yep. Please do. Because I mean, obviously, there are
time series,
event
series, temporal data to and from. Yes.
Right, but data bins are a slightly different structure, and perhaps we can make, we've been. I mean, you can see plenty of these data series have 100,000 elements in them, and so on, right?
Yeah.
And it seems to work fine. Okay, so what we've got here is a thing where we have the general structure is, it's basically time, arrow, association, object one goes to payload, which could be the bounding box or it could be some other thing, right?
Correct.
And presumably this thing here could itself be an association.
It could.
Now, if this was a tabular, if you transposed this.
Yes, it does work in a tabular as well.
Well, I mean, it works by having columns for every object. Is that correct?
And they might be missing at some times, but obviously tabular does that well.
Tabular has columns for every object.
Yeah.
Now, if this was in a tabular, how easy would it be to get what you want?
You could have, but it's not so useful. You could have a collection of objects too, but I mean, the processing of that is not so nice.
What do you mean a collection of objects?
I mean, you could have a list of objects. So it's a general expression in a column.
In a column, you said?
Yeah.
Fine, but I mean, what I'm saying is that if you have this tabular, then all the processing you currently want to do is fairly easy.
Mm-hmm.
That is, if you want to do it the time series, you're just saying, pick a row. If you want to do the behavior, you're picking a column here, right?
Right.
Now, is this going to be desperately inefficient? Because, you've got a movie where you've got, cows at the beginning and giraffes at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got, but I don't think our tabulars are particularly inefficient in storing missings, are they?
No, very efficient. That's not a problem. I mean, the question is, when you start to include general expressions, then we incur the cost of general expressions, but that's it.
Sure.
For more special data structures, it's more efficient all the way.
Well, but something like a rectangle is a general expression, although probably tabular could be made to rectangularize things as a meta operation. So that what's actually stored in the tabular is that little matrix, basically a 2x2. Is that plausible? Is that useful, or is that not useful? I mean,
I think it's
the compiler type.
I mean, but I think it's too special at this point. I think the cost of developing support
No, I
for that.
understand. It's not worth it.
Right.
Right. But I mean, this, unless bounding boxes become a thing.
Right.
Okay. So all right. I mean, I'm kind of I'm thinking of something like association time series or some such other thing. That means it's a time series where every entry in the time series is an association. I mean, maybe there's a better way to say it. Does that make any sense to people?
Yes.
And then we have operations on association time series. Because I just don't think that, I think we're going to want a bunch of different return types for what you're calling video object track right now. And one of them is probably an association time series. I don't know, well, what's the point of association time series? I mean, you understand where I'm going with this, Roger?
Yes.
Okay, so what are your comments?
I mean, I think it requires a little bit more thought than sort of like hacking it up this week. But
yeah, but okay, fine. All right, but so my main point here is, data bin is a model. Some of that flight data is a model, those kinds of things, right?
I think what we should do is something that's sufficient for right now, but keep it experimental and work it one more release cycle and get more
then
things.
Just return a tabular.
Yeah, maybe that.
Don't have some new object type. I mean, what we could do is force one to specify the object type in this function, the video tracking function, okay, and not address the default question yet.
Also, Carlo hacked time series, so we can use it.
But there will be hellish to so time series is now can support that kind of thing, but it will be hell to switch between one representation and the other.
Probably still, yes. That's probably
okay. Fine,
yeah.
But I mean,
so
but let's not do that. Let's have it be the case right now that you return either one representation or the other representation. We don't allow you to have a multifaceted object that lets you extract each of them. But I think the tabular is not going to be that difficult to extract the different representations from. See what I'm saying?
It's not going to be necessary. I see what you mean by extracting just a row or two
that's what we need to
columns
do.
that are time and
Yes, that's what we need. What's the issue?
I I still think we are losing some ease of functionality, but everything will be accessible.
What
Just the
ease?
user.
What ease? What are we losing? Tell me what we're losing.
This transposition and the fact that time series has.
No, just tell me what operation
interpolate-
we don't get easily.
That's what I was saying. It doesn't have interpolation, so you need to at first extract from discrete rows rather than specify continuous times. I think that could be potentially annoying.
Well, okay, but that's something we've got to fix for Tabular anyway, because Tabular is going to be used as a container for time series, right, Roger?
Yes, in that case, that's an overlay on it for sure.
But
Right,
the
so-
head is still going to be time series, not tabular in that case.
I think so.
So I would slightly be more comfortable with a time series return than a tabular return in the interim of figuring out that
Fine.
bigger object.
Yeah, that seems
I-
fine to me. What's wrong with that?
But
Then
then-
the transposition becomes impossible.
Exactly.
once
I
you
know.
bundle
We
it.
know the
Times and
transposition is
positions.
impossible. Okay, we
Yeah.
know the transposition is impossible, so don't have people do it. So when you ask for the result, you either ask for the time series result or you ask for
Absolutely.
the main time series result for everything, where the payloads in the time series are associations, or you ask for the time series associated with a particular object.
I get what you mean. I'm just saying that if the only way to get to the other representation is to
Tough
recompute
luck.
the thing,
Tough
okay.
luck.
Well,
We're not
I
going
mean,
to look, listen, we're not going to have some stupid thing where we introduce some crazy thing that's specific to video tracking, which is basically the same kind of structure as we need for time series and data bins, or we need for flight tracking, or we need for a whole bunch of other things. We're not going to introduce some special object for this. We need to
Okay.
solve the general problem. And the general problem is a time series whose elements are associations and where you can do that transposition, right?
that is correct.
Okay. So that's why I'm telling you, we either have something like association time series, okay? Or, I mean, I don't know if that makes, I mean, I'm not that keen on the name. Let's not do a hack where we just do something for video stuff. It's just going to break. We're not
Okay.
going to be able to get the things we want. And I'm also not exactly thrilled by this way of dealing with an object, you know, a serial number for an object. See what I'm saying?
Well, but look at person 1, person 2, person 3. How else are we going to do that?
I'm not sure. Possibly a wrapper. And, you know, in SDL, for example, there's a whole mechanism for scoped entities, which I think is basically what this needs. Am I making sense?
No, I didn't get it.
Okay. In the Symbolic Discourse Language project, which we've been working on for a long time, there is a mechanism for having kind of scoped entities, which means a person, this person, person 1, let's say.
Oh, an instance. Yeah, I see.
Right, it's an
Okay.
instance, but it's a scoped instance. So it's the same person. You're referring to the same person many times, just like a variable X in a module, for example.
Uh-huh.
Keep in mind that these labels are not, if the user has provided labels, they don't need to be entities. They can be an arbitrary expression.
Fine. I don't know, how does the user provide those things?
Well, say they have a random neural net that spits some random strings with boxes, right?
Why is that going to do anything related to video tracking?
We could have a detector specified in video content, whatever we call it, video track contents.
I see. Which returns a bounding box and a name.
Yes.
Yeah, or whatever as long as it's some expression attached to a bounding box. Yeah.
All right, let's start from the top again here. Okay. What we are talking about is, except it wasn't the top, it was down here. We're talking about
Video tracked contents is the main one. So let's maybe stay focused on that. That's video in tracked objects out.
I know. Okay, well, what is it really returning? It's really returning a time series. And we've already got video map time series, right?
Correct.
Which returns a time series.
You know what's funny? I used to joke about having cows in time series. We're literally gonna have them right now.
Yes, yes. Especially for people who are doing various kinds of herding, flocking.
Oh my God. Okay. You can't make this stuff up.
No, there was a person I know who did a big study of sheep with all of whom had GPS trackers. And you can find who the alpha sheep is, and it changes from day to day and so on.
Yeah. I mean, actually interesting. My friend has a startup that does for animal husbandry. If one cow deviates from the flock, there's a problem, usually. There's a strong indicator. And then it needs attention. And there are, like in Sweden, the animal husbandry laws that requires you to tend to them within certain intervals. And this is potentially a way to automate away a lot of that.
That's fun. Just wait until that's done for people.
Yes.
Somebody's away from the flock.
Right.
Might be done already for kids.
Yeah,
right.
But better or worse. And eventually the AI, that's how the AI takes over.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Video tracking time series.
And then you're also thinking some additional function that then returns labels.
Actually, that's another interesting case. So when we can get GPS tracks in with timestamps, right? That's another kind of thing. Yeah.
We can get GPS tracks of different planes, for example, right?
Right.
If I did this same thing here for multiple flights, I would get, which I don't have an easy way to do, but I would get multiple time series here.
Right.
So it's the exact same problem as the video tracking problem. So really, this is some kind of object time series.
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, we've got the notion of an object time series. It's a little bit object, entity. What could we call that?
So we have, I noticed that we have a GeoPath, but that doesn't have time. But I think that we wanted to have timestamp.
No, we do want time-stamped ones of those.
Right.
We have to ask Jose how that's working. I think that was planned for this version, except Tabula got in the way.
Yeah, I've heard of it for a couple of. It's never been. I mean, I don't think it was ever worked on nearby now. It was a couple of releases ago, but we need to return to it.
Yeah, and it's same thing for plane tracks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right, right.
So
we actually have, in a way, I think we have a similar problem for controllers, trackers that actually control systems to track these paths.
Well, do we like something like object time series?
Is that a proposal for this version release?
For what?
For 14.2? Because I feel like that would need to integrate much deeper into the time series framework, which I don't think.
Yeah, it's not going to happen for 14.2. I'm trying to figure out what we're trying to do. Then I'm going to go back from there.
I think, and I was hoping that we had it further done with the application side. I think the application side for the video tracking stuff moved forward and we exposed a bunch of stuff. But I think that there's much more. There's a bit more to be done. And these things that brought up, Stephen, the related ones are really useful for that too.
Right. Look,
for use cases.
What we might want to do for this version if we have some tracking thing, but we don't even know what it's supposed to return, we might want to make it some WFR for this version. You can call into your current code, but that's, we might want to package it that way. Or we can try to figure out the thing that I said before, which is if it's video tracking time series, right, then it could return, you could force it to have a second argument, which says return a tabular, return this, return that, with the idea that in 14.3, it returns an object time series by default. Ali is suggesting object track time series.
So you're proposing video tracking time series over video track contents. Are you still objecting to that name?
Yeah, I'm still objecting to that name. I don't believe in it because it is a time series. I think video track contents is incomprehensible.
I think they were thinking of image content, so riffing on that name.
I know. But the question of object time series, I'm wondering, another possibility would be to call it tracking time series. Because in a sense, what it is
depends on where you want it to go. Do you want it to be also for geopaths and flights?
Yes, I do. But that's okay. That's tracking.
I guess it is.
Flight tracking,
I guess it is for satellites. I mean, satellites and other.
Right, because what it is, it's tracking an object.
Right. I guess.
It seems a bit of a stretch. Yeah, I feel like it seems to me a bit of a stretch. The word tracking is the same, sure, but the point of the function is that it solves the assignment problem, right, between different frames. While the flight
I mean your function, Carlos, solves that, right? So what comes out is already
is a tracked thing.
Yes. Right, disambiguated and as far as we can, right?
No, but a tracking time series
correct.
For satellites or for stars and things like that. What this is solving is keeping track of an object going between pieces of the time series. Yes. Right? And the tracking time series has two different things. The tracking time series is either kind of objects first, object indexed, or it's time indexed.
Yes.
Oh, so now, the other possibility that has multiple. That's a little bit like temporal data. I mean, that's what we kind of do there. Or if they're all have sort of the same timestamp, it could be a.
Well, is that what temporal data does?
Yeah.
I thought temporal data was still time first.
Yeah, but it has multiple. I'm saying it has a whole ensemble of them.
Correct.
Okay, so hold on. I mean, what I'm wondering about is we've got these two, it's kind of like a sparse array. We've got array rules and we've got normal and so on for a sparse array. And here we've got this object indexed and time indexed versions of tracking time series. You see what I'm saying? And I'm just wondering how you extract, well, I guess how do you extract from a time series? To extract a particular time is pretty straightforward, right?
Well, we made that super trivial because interpolation, it's going to be, it's
right.
If it's between, it's,
Yeah, and we have to be able to do that for this kind of tracking time series. We don't want, just because you hit between two frames, the dog doesn't evaporate.
Right. I mean, that's at least people believe that.
That's right. That's the That's a fundamental. Don't get me started on that. That's a
No,
key
I'm not.
assumption in
No,
the
no.
persistent
Yeah.
observers,
I
persistence
know,
of
I know, I
observers
know.
of time, etc.,
I
etc.,
know, I know,
etc.
I know.
Okay.
I didn't want to get you started.
Right. Okay. In any case, but so the time indexed version of this will be pretty nice. I mean, this is basically this thing sub time is going to give us an association of the configuration at that time, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Whereas object indexed, we need a way to index to do object indexing of this.
But it's sparse and things come and go.
I know. So we're going to have things. I mean, we could do an information type thing to tell us what things are in the tracking time series.
Yep. Which is exactly, again, one of the properties of that tracking object.
Yeah, I understand. Well, how do you get the particular time from the tracking object?
Can you open the tracking object?
The particular time doesn't exist yet, but it would be.
Well, how would you
run.
do it? How would you do it, syntax-wise?
So the specific time, I think it could just be the normal sub-value like time series.
I don't think so, because how would you do these things? You're not
I mean,
going to
those
hack
are
it with.
very distinct, right?
I know
The
that, but
time
you're going to
and
hack it with strings, and it's a bad idea. Ethan is suggesting object tracking data, which is not terrible.
Meaning it would be more natural to provide both types of slices.
Yeah.
Object slice and time slice.
And Ali is commenting, connecting space and time together, we can have spatiotemporal series.
Yes.
Now, okay, so hold on. That's
Stephen, you know, Ali is implementing this, right?
Oh, okay, so that's good. So maybe he could join us here. But anyway, be that as it may, but how is that working for historical countries?
Which? Oh,
Spatiotemporal series. Have you been involved in those discussions?
no, I have not.
So there's a lot of work that's been done on, it was done for 14.1 on, the shape of the Roman Empire as a function of time.
Oh, that's what you mean. Okay, no, I know about that.
Right. So I mean, in the end, it's a space-time tube of, a country that has these waypoints where we know how it changed and so on. And most of the time, it's a piecewise interpolation between those things. So it's a order zero interpolation, right? You don't want to say it might in fact be the case that over this period of 2 years, the effective border of this country linearly moved from one place to another as a bunch of armies were marching from here to there, but we don't want to assume that. Right. So
I have spent some time thinking about spatiotemporal data and processing of it. It's a step up from where we are, but if we just want a container for it, I think we can. Well, the container is better the more processing we have, obviously.
Right.
One thing that would be nice about object tracking data, for example, is I don't think we would want to immediately. We have to have some sub-value mechanism. I mean, we might end up with one of these rather horrible things like time. I don't know what the sub-value would be, time arrow t or something like this. I don't really like that.
But I think for objects, I mean, if it's objects, they're sort of discrete things, right? There's a finite number of them.
Well, that's what we're planning on. This is a category of thing here. A finite number that have tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
I can imagine a zillion cases where this is useful to have tracks. I'm thinking of, particle tracks, elementary particles or particles in a fluid or whatever else.
Right.
There's a ton of this stuff. I mean, if we have, all right. So I mean, object tracking data is not that far away from your whatever it was
No, that
called.
seems pretty similar, yeah.
But so let's just understand whether we have any chance to implement that. So you've got right now, what's the tracking object here? That's what we're talking about, right?
It's
That's,
like object tracking data. It seems to be the same structure if I understand correctly.
okay. So, okay. So let's imagine we have object tracking data. And then we basically have sub-values. Except that object tracking data could have, I mean, we could be doing things like saying, like we do with data bins, right? Where you say values of that and things like this.
Mhm.
Yeah. Or data set or tabular of that.
Yep.
Or time series of object tracking data.
Yeah.
So if that worked the same way,
That seems easy to do, yeah. And reasonable, I think.
well, but then if it's going to work the same way, see, the thing is, with a data bin, you have a fixed record for all time. See what I'm saying? So I'm not quite
No,
sure what this does. It's a fixed record, so that means that if we're going here, well, this is, it's always question, answer, comments, email. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas here, things come and go.
So there are two,
Yeah.
I think, approaches. One is to always return the same association, but with explicit missing values. There's one option, or the other one is to each time, at each frame, return an association with only the keys that are actually present in that frame.
Well, okay. So what I think we should do is this. If you say time series of this, what it should do is it should return an association of each object, obj1, and then the time series for that object.
Okay.
So that time series, now it's a little bit tricky because that time series might be discontinuous. So how is that handled in time series? Do we have a way of dealing with that?
We have missing values in time
Yes.
series. That's fine.
Zero order interpolation. And actually, you can specify continuous from the left or right, I think.
Okay, so what will we do? Would we have each of these time series span the complete duration of the object tracking data? Or would we have it, yes?
I think so, because the information that it is missing in a specific frame is useful. And it might be, as you said, discontinuous. It's not just this starts later or ends sooner. It could have
It's not
gaps in the
obvious
middle.
that this time series here would give this as opposed to a time series in which it is, a time arrow association object one arrow whatever. See what I'm saying?
And those are the two transposition windows.
I know. So let's figure out how we get those. So from object tracking data, how would we most naturally get object indexed or time indexed?
Yeah. So one question that I have is, you have that usage time goes to T.
Well, I think it's stupid. Yeah.
Okay. You just want this, the only sub-value for this to be time?
I don't know. Okay. I'm not sure that's the right thing. I think object tracking data, it might be better to have objects.
I mean, so for instance, a useful query might be for object one, give me the time intervals when it occurs.
Correct.
Or it's present or tracked or whatever.
How do we deal with this in other cases, like facial features or something like that?
Facial features so far was only image based. Now we're extending that to be to work on videos 14.2, and same problem comes there. We're basically debating on what's the best output there. So far, we
like
think
this name object tracking data. Thank you, Ethan. I mean, I think this is a that's pretty general. Now, the only question is what the accessors look like.
Yep. And I don't know if you want to look at the tracking objects page, there are some proposal of what
I know, I understand
some
that,
of
but those
these
are all
accessors.
sub-values, right?
Mhm.
So
Yes,
let's look at
yes.
how databin works, because databin also has sub-values, but then it has the possibility of wrappers. And by the way, we should, as I already said, we should get tabular of databin to work.
Yeah, of course. And data set of that as
Already
Well, it already does.
with the team.
Data set already does. So these are the things that
well. Oh, no,
work.
sorry, I was thinking of the tracked object. Never mind. Yeah.
So, I mean, these, I've not been thrilled by these, but these are not terrible.
Mhm.
The one that looks wild to me is the get. But I guess it makes sense in the context of data bin.
Okay, so here we go with request, comma. I see. So the way this works is similar to the way service connections work. Request and then parameters. See what I'm saying?
Yep.
Yeah, we could easily do that.
And the parameters are either sequence, which is times, I suppose, or keys and values, which is more of objects in our context.
Probably, yes. So I think you should look in detail at these, but this looks to me like it's usable.
Okay, so
Okay,
I think
so now what we want to do is what is the function? So I'm sort of agreeing with you that we can have something which is like, you know, your tracking. I've even forgotten what it's called.
yeah,
Tracking
the name
object.
doesn't matter. Yeah, object
Right.
tracking
So I
data
think
sounds
this is
good.
the one, object tracking data. But now the question is, what is the function?
I think that wasn't there like a video object tracking name?
Video object track was the original name.
Oh, okay.
And then we were trying to mimic image contents with either video contents, and then it morphed into video track contents.
Mhm.
What are some names? I think it's going to return an object tracking data thing, video object tracking. I
mean,
kind
I
of
would
like
not
the
be
fact
opposed
that
to that.
video object tracking doesn't sound like finished goods. See what I'm saying?
Mhm.
It doesn't seem like it's going to return something immediately that's right there, useful on the screen. You expect that you're going to have to do some operation on it. Does that make sense?
That sounds reasonable.
And I like that because usually the object detections and tracking takes time for the user to expect they have to do this time-consuming thing first and then do the more useful operations is
All
a
right.
good
Okay.
expectation.
So let's go with this. Let's build it with this.
Okay.
Okay.
And then I think you've got to come up with the request names and all that kind of stuff for this.
Yeah, sure. But I think that
And
fits
the
with.
and the way of saying so you can just say tabular of object tracking data and it will, fill out a tabular.
Yeah. All of those, I think, were part of the plan, and yeah, sounds good. We know we have a plan.
Okay. So now here, a bunch of these will end up returning object tracking data. Presumably, including image cases.
No.
Well, why not?
Because we don't by default perform the tracking. We just return. So say you have a video of like 5 people, they go in and out of frame. Find faces each frame will be independent, right? I think.
Yeah, I understand. It is now.
And yes.
So just returning a time series of faces, untracked faces, could be useful on its own. So the workflow we were thinking was find faces returns a time series of bounding boxes, and then that could be passed to what we were proposing to be the third function. And then we track those bounding boxes to find association between those bounding boxes.
which would be returning an object tracking data.
Correct.
I don't see why you can't feed that collection of bounding boxes into video object tracking.
Okay.
That was
Otherwise-
what
I'm happy
we
with
had
that.
last week as well. Yeah.
That sounds great. One less function, still have all the functionality. I'm happy.
Okay.
Because it's video-like. I mean, for now, let's do that. So video object tracking either contains a video or it contains
Objects.
a time
Yep.
series of what? Of
Objects.
Boxes, points,
At the moment, we support
label
boxes.
matrices.
Yes.
so it'll have in here, it'll have a time and then what?
An association of label goes to bounding box or just a list of
Okay.
bounding boxes.
It seems okay. Let's see how it feels, but it seems okay.
Okay.
Okay, so here with find faces, what's it returning?
Time series.
It's returning this kind of time series, which you can then put into video object tracking,
Yes.
which
Correct.
will come back as object tracking data.
Yep.
And you can pass all of those into fast stuff like highlight video and etc. etc.
Wonderful. Let's give it a try.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, video editing. What do you mean by support for still images?
So if you want to video combine one image with an audio, now that works. If you want to join for a duration of time,
I see.
one image with one video, that now
Fine.
works.
So video transcribe. So I can take a video and then I can, which has, so what's the point? I can take a video which is in Spanish or something, and why wouldn't video, what does video transcribe return?
video.
Another video that has a subtitle track, the closed caption in it.
How do I display that in our, with our video viewer? How do I display the closed captions?
Video
In the
GUI?
hamburger menu, there's a subtitle track selector, and you can just select that. And
Yeah,
should
but
just work.
video
Yeah.
summary plot, I was thinking, could also add something that says
Where
we
is
have
it? Where is it?
subtitle.
Where is it?
The subtitle
there it
track?
says subtitle track, yeah. There's subtitle track in gray, and then the options are none, and then the Eurasian bullfinch. Yeah.
Just there.
And now what happens?
You see the subtitle.
This is so confusing. This is so frigging confusing. This
Yeah,
thing.
you mentioned that we're updating the GUI. We'll work on that too.
I can't even see what it says here. Okay. Why did it pick? Why did it pick that?
That is how the subtitle is stored. The formatting is baked into the video.
Baked into this particular video.
Yes.
Yes.
I see. Okay.
And in fact, the next item on the agenda affects that as well.
Okay, subtitle style. So if I were to change the subtitle style here,
You would need to
Mhm.
create a new video to do so, but yes, you should be able to.
I don't understand.
change
Why
the subtitle.
You
subtitle?
can do it there. Yeah, you can do it there.
No, it's not a display thing. It's baked into the video file.
But
So-
but if
understand, but why
Steven
wouldn't video-
pass
Oh,
it to
video
video
transcribe.
transcribe,
Sorry. Yes.
Why doesn't this work?
it should work.
No, it's not merged yet. It needs approval. I think
Okay,
for the moment it should work if you do a string subtitle style.
Okay, right, okay. So then this will make the subtitle style in Bullfinch red.
It should.
What happens if I want the subtitle style to change as it goes from night to dark, night to?
Ooh.
Okay. Yay, prototype. I don't think this worked.
Okay, okay, fine.
Given
But
all
what
the
happens
messages,
if I
but
want
yes.
to change the subtitle style as I go through the video?
So there is a more specific way of writing subtitles that can be subtitle by specified subtitle by subtitle. I'm not sure there is an easy way to do that in video transcribe. If you had a list of subtitles that you wanted to write, you could wrap each one in style, for example, and have a different one for each
How do I
one.
say which range of times I want a particular subtitle to apply in?
It's
Look at video combine. I think we
Yeah.
have a syntax there.
Yes. It's the usual list of 2 times or interval of quantity of interval. Any variation of those should work.
Okay, I don't fully understand, but I mean, I can see roughly how this is going to work. Okay, we have a question from Ethan here. Will there be support for spatial video, MVHEVC? Is that the thing that
Yeah, Apple uses
phones,
for
yeah.
Apple Vision. I think there is FFmpeg just merged support for that in version 7.1, which was out yesterday or something. So we'll test, we'll see.
So we should get that.
Theoretically, so at least in terms of ability of reading and writing.
What has happened with our spherical images?
Ended up in WFR.
Oh, really?
Yep.
It never made it to the main system?
No.
Why was that? Because we gave up on the design or what?
I don't fully remember. I don't think we gave up. It was just a decision of that's a more proper place for it to be.
I think this wasn't very general. But if we start to be able to have, sensible VR videos, I mean, it's not clear what you do with this other than, I mean, this isn't a video. This is just a still image.
It's a dynamic image, so you can move around that scene. If you, not in a web page, but if you evaluate that in a notebook.
That's cool. Yeah, I remember this. Why didn't we integrate this into the main system?
I think mostly because it was limited in scope, as you said. It was not only because it wasn't general enough, it was only a display at this point. We really didn't fully think about how do we process this. It was just a display.
Right. And this is related to something that Jose needs to get to, which is GeoRaster.
Mm-hmm.
Like, can we make sure that gets on? Maybe if Eli is here, maybe we can make sure that gets on the global project list. GeoRaster, as well as spherical image and their relation.
Sure thing.
I think GeoRaster is a little bit different. It needs coordinates.
It's related. Because again, it's taking a spherical thing and being able to render it. It's not quite the same. They're 2 different projects.
Yeah.
I think also that like GeoTIFFs, I know are supported already, right?
Oh, sure.
Yep.
Yeah, but what's not supported is a lot of stuff to do with putting fields onto, I mean, not fields onto fields, but scalar fields on a geo image, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
But this is really nice, actually. I mean, the problem is I don't know how we generate one of these other than just importing it, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a good way to generate this. I mean, we could have.
We can stitch images together.
Right, but what we should really be able to do is to take a graphics 3D scene and make one of these out of it.
Correct.
Can we do that?
No.
So that, by the way, in the notes for Eli, that should be, graphics 3D to spherical image. Because that to me seems like it would start to be useful.
I mean, you could move around the 3D graphics on its own.
But for VR, I think you need to. Oh, you're saying in VR you can just interact with the 3D graphics?
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. Right, without having it turned into an image.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have a little bit more because they're not just sort of
yeah, I agree.
Pasted on a sphere. You move past
I
objects
agree.
and stuff.
Okay. All right. Let's look. Let's see here. Okay. Audio, Cloud GUI. Is this done or is this?
No, that is ongoing. We switched to template boxes so the cloud team can override our GUI, but it
sorry,
sounds
don't
like it
don't
will.
look at future, Stephen.
Okay.
That's very messy.
Image. Frame
So
by
that's
frame
all the video
analysis, that's what we
upgrades.
just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
That's nice, but so wait a minute. These detections are for object types, and those are entities of some kind. Is that correct?
It's not
Yes.
twice as much objects that we detect. Like it's the same number of classes that we had before. Just that with the new network, we get more objects detected in images.
You mean just
And
because
you will
it works
finally,
better?
yes, you will finally also be able to just say dog and then with the entity and it will work. I think Alan provided a few more mappings of stuff to concepts.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about GPU stuff for a second, because certainly for any modern, I mean, when the GPU is present, like for a modern Mac with its built-in GPU, it should just work, right?
It
No
does.
target device. Okay.
Okay. Oh, I see.
Oh
I see what you
no,
mean.
we don't automatically yet go to GPU.
What?
You're suggesting we should automatically
We need to
use...
auto detect and we need to use it. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm happy with that. I feel like that is a more general discussion than just these specific few functions.
I know. But I mean, that's what I'm saying. You know, given that those things are now in place, let's figure out how we do the auto detection. We talked this afternoon about how we identify that there is a GPU in place, so to speak.
Yeah.
Am I making sense?
Yeah, and you're proposing
Yeah.
by default, if we think it is going to be advantageous, just throw the GPU on.
That's correct. By the way, I have a question about GPU array for a second here. Why is that not? That is a subcase of numerical array. True or not true?
Not true. Mainly because, I mean, we could generalize various things, but it does include sparse and dense both. It does have all these subtypes and possibly some more that we probably should add to numeric array, because GPUs have, as we discussed with Intel, Stephen, in that meeting, the fewer bit cases are, moving along quite fast.
So, but I mean, what's the relationship between when do you want a numeric array that isn't a GPU array?
I mean, numeric array was introduced primarily as a storage medium for media, for image, for audio, etc.
And why wouldn't you want to store that? I mean, you only want to store that on GPU if the operations you're doing are not GPUable operations. Your point? I mean, much of the time, numeric array just wants to be in CPU memory.
No, we need to think, it's a little bit complicated. I think we need sort of a longer discussion about that.
Okay. All right. Okay, fine. So that's that we kind of went over the GPU array a bit fast this afternoon.
Right.
So, okay. So the question, we've got to come back to the discussion of numeric array versus GPU array. Is that right?
Well, yeah, I think we should. I think
we can have GPU array as an experimental feature for 14.2.
I think we need it. I think it's. I think that we are over the next few years. We have many updates to arrays that will move that whole frontier forward.
Yeah. Okay. Wish people understood the things we put in 10 years ago already. Some do. Okay. Is that our name for this?
They call it tabular data set, and we thought that was confusing.
Sure is. Why isn't it just arrow data set? Does arrow deal with anything other than tabular data?
No.
What is IPC?
That's another format.
Inter-process communication.
What does it look like? Is it another array? I mean, is it?
It's also tabular.
Yep.
Okay, so why don't we call it arrow IPC and arrow data set?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. So these have tabular elements that you can read these things into, which are not the default at this time.
Correct.
Yeah, well, these would be really nice. I mean, hopefully we can make them the default, at least for 15 or something.
Right.
Okay. So we have a new XML importer.
We had it in 14.1. Now we're using it in other XML-based formats.
Did we
Expression
mention
ML.
that in the XML?
Yes.
Did we mention we had that in the? I didn't write about that, did I?
I think so.
I don't think I did. I think
You may not have written about it.
I don't think I wrote about it. I think nobody told me about it.
No, I definitely told you about it. Let me quickly check.
Oh, I'm sure it came up. It was part of the design review and stuff.
But then why would I not have written about it? What did it have in it? Was it notable or was it
new backend? Part of what we want to ultimately get, I think, is sort of tree processing.
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, if we really didn't write about it, you would need to tag that for the next time around.
Okay.
Okay. That markdown?
Yes.
What about export to markdown? That seems
That's
to be
next.
Okay. That's an important thing. By the way, we should probably
Sure.
have that in the global project list because I think that has a bunch of significance for a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
That's for Eli. Okay, very quickly here. Data connection object. So for Dropbox, what does that allow it? So if somebody sends me a Dropbox link, what is the form of that link? Is it an HTTP link or what is it? Or is it a Dropbox : link?
It's an HTTP. S3 is the only one that can have an S3 colon.
Okay. But so what is the point of these data connections? That you give me an HTTP. What is its file extension? The file extension.
I think we should have that in a tabular review meeting, Stephen. I think we need Sean here too for when we do it. And so, but I'll explain the point. The point is that we want to be able to deal with credentials, authentication protocols to be able to suck in data from a data store.
Yep.
Those are the pains that we want to kind of work past. Then you need to indicate where, and it's a little bit different for different storage system. A file like storage systems like these, that's sort of pretty obvious what you do. An SQL, a relational database system, it's also pretty obvious what you do. And a multidimensional database system, it's a little bit different. And for an API, it's a little bit different to say where. But the thing is that they can all be the same abstraction in some ways.
Well, it's nice to just have one central place. It's like a password manager or something,
right,
where you have all of the credentialing and so on, all the authentication for everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what we should probably, I mean, maybe that's what we should do. We should just have I don't know what we call it, not quite password manager, but it's something like that. I mean, it ties into probably the system keychain or something else.
Right.
We already have something that ties into the system keychain. Right?
Absolutely.
It's
System
system credential.
Yeah, system
It
credential.
works pretty well.
I agree. But that means that basically we can have something where, yeah, we need something where you can just have a big panel that just has all of your password information and so on in it. And you can update that, just like with the password manager. Which raises the interesting question of whether we could actually use a password manager. In other words,
I think there are two use cases. There's that use case, which is certainly very useful. The other thing is that what happens if you send it along in a notebook?
I agree. Right. With a password that is something where you perhaps want it to phone home. And I mean, this requires some complicated sort of fourth party authentication stuff or something.
Right.
Where you send it along and it does, but I do wonder, and it's not for this meeting, I guess, but I do wonder whether the standard password managers actually have APIs. Like the system credential API.
I mean, I guess you're separating password manager and system keychain, so maybe those
I
are
am because
separate enough.
The
Yeah.
password manager that I use, for example, is, I mean, it's on some server that we have, and it has, it shares itself across all my devices. Right. And I would assume most people want to do that rather than having it. I mean, most people don't have just one device. They have at least a phone and a computer and things like this.
Yeah, I know on what I use on my machine is just the system keychain that is shared through different devices, through, Apple.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you have your own homebrew password manager, I see that being separate.
Well, it's not homebrew. It's just that there are certain. Okay. The question
is.
No,
I see what you mean, though. Yeah.
Right. And the question is, are there APIs for those password managers that are analogous to the system credential API? All right. Anyway, sounds like that's it for today. Nothing else that we want to go over here?
Are we done? Do you want to return?
I think we should have a quick look again once you've got this object tracking data stuff in place.
Okay.
I was thinking, let us change everything. Maybe we can send you a notebook with examples, and if anything is questionable, we can come back to a meeting.
Let's pick it up in another, in a fragments meeting, so to speak. Okay. Let's have a combined fragments meeting because we're going to have other sort of fragments from other design reviews, I think.
Makes sense.
But I would expect this to be, I mean, because we're going to have to go over the property types and so on.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you
Thanks
very
a lot.
much.
Thank you to the people who are running the live stream at this time, and thank you to people attending. See you all soon.